welcome back to Rating the List, where we review, discuss, and reimagine popular movie lists objectively. We're your hosts. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad. And in this episode, we'll be exploring number 48 from AFI's 100 Years, 100 Passions, the 100 Greatest Love Stories of All Time.
All right, number 48 is The Last Tango in Paris, released in 1972, directed by Bernardo Bertolucci, starring Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider.
The synopsis for this erotic drama is as follows. Middle-aged American hotel owner Paul, Marlon Brando, meets Jean, played by Maria Schneider, a young, engaged Parisian, at an apartment both are interested in renting. He takes the apartment after beginning an anonymous sexual affair with her. Reeling from the death of his wife, he insists they not share any personal information, including names, much to her dismay. At one point in the relationship, he rapes her. Despite this, she tries to leave him but tells him she can't bring herself to do it. The affair continues for some time until Paul decides to leave Jean. She arrives to the apartment to find he's packed up and left without warning. Paul later meets her on the street. He opens up about the recent tragedy with his wife and that he wants to renew the relationship. They walk into a tango bar and he continues to tell her his life story, but the loss of anonymity disillusions her about the relationship. She tells him she doesn't want to see him again. Paul doesn't take no for an answer and follows her through the streets of Paris. Despite her yells for him to go away and threats to call the police, he chases her to her apartment building and forces his way into her home. He mocks her for running away and tells her he loves her and wants to know her name. She pulls a gun from a drawer. She tells Paul her name and shoots him. He stumbles to the balcony and collapses from his mortal wound. As he dies, Jean, in a daze, mutters to herself, "He was just a stranger who tried to rape me," and as if rehearsing for when the police arrive.
Yeah, so this movie was really odd. It was really weird.
Yeah, it's another one of these things where it's just like, I really would like to sit down with whoever makes the votes on these movies and just like, do you understand what love is?
Yeah.
Because there's no love story, in my opinion, that's going to have a rape scene in it.
Right. So we could take a look at the different love stories in this, supposed love stories in this series, right? We got Paul and Jean.
Right.
Their whole relationship is sexual, and it's abusive, it's violent, and it's cruel.
Right.
It's very, like, I guess S&M-ish.
A
little bit, but not even
really that. It's more he's working out his
death of his wife.
He's working
suicide.
out the death of his wife with this younger woman who's kind of in a weird spot with her own true relationship.
Yeah, Tom.
That one is weird too because he's equally kind of brutal to her in a different way.
Yeah, and
he's not physically
he's just
brutal.
using her, like, basically to put him in this movie. He's following her around with a camera, and she doesn't tell him about her affair with Paul, and she really doesn't want to get married.
Yeah. And
he's, like, kind of forcing the issue on her. And she's like, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that.
And then you have, although she's not there on the screen, you've got Paul and his dead wife. And there's this really, really strange scene where he's like, talking with her, basically.
Like, she's still dead in the bed.
Yeah, and he's like speaking to her, and it's just like, even then he's like disrespectful to her.
Really weird.
It's a very, very strange movie. This movie is just like layered with misogynistic overtones, and it's just kind of icky.
It's gross. Yeah, there was no sexiness about it at all.
No, and frankly, that might have been what they wanted out of it, was to have this movie that's filled with sex that really isn't sexy, to explore something else. I'm just not quite sure exactly what that would have been.
I don't really know either. And Marlon Brando is just like walking around being pretentious and weird, and like he says to her, like, I want this place to feel like childhood, and I want us to feel childlike in this relationship, and it's like he comes off, he tries to be quirky and charming, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah,
for me.
and the whole like premise of it too is just like what, like why, like how it's just not believable to me that they're in this apartment, all of a sudden they just randomly have sex.
Yeah.
It like comes out of nowhere.
Nowhere. She's like, "What are you doing in this room?" And he's like, "What? I live here." She's like, "Well, I'm trying to rent the place." And then boom, they have sex.
It's very strange. Like I could see like some kind of lead up where they see, like there's just like there's no lead up into it. Like you don't see their attraction for each other or how it happens. It's just like all of a sudden they have sex, and then like even if they had sex like in this thing, it almost seems like it's like a one-time thing.
Yeah, like okay, wham bam, thank you ma'am, bye.
Yeah, like maybe she's got this thing where she's always wanted to have sex with a stranger and never learned his name or whatever. Okay, whatever, fine. But it like leads.
But
into
what's
this weird
interesting is
relationship.
in the beginning she's like, "Well, why can't I know your name? I want to know who you are." And he's like, "Oh no, let's leave it like this because
And then she kind of gets to dig that for some reason, which okay, fine.
Yeah, and then at the end she's like,
she doesn't.
"Hey, wait, I don't want to know. I don't want this to be." No.
Yeah, once she kind of finds out who he is, it kind of breaks the whole mystique of the whole thing for her, I guess.
Well, and I think that she was, after he was abusive to her and then had sex with her, she would say, "I can't do this. I can't." Like she knew it wasn't a good time.
Yeah.
And she was having a hard time letting go of that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So she,
When she's young, she's like 19.
Yeah, she was really young. She's gorgeous. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange film, and one that it's really critically lauded, which surprises me.
Which I really don't understand.
I don't understand.
Is it because Marlon Brando's in it?
I think it has to be.
Who is not giving his best performance I've ever seen him make.
No, well, he's at this point in his career where he stopped learning his lines. Like he's doing his lines off of like cue cards. So there's the scene where he's talking with his wife and he kind of looks up. It's not an acting choice. He's looking at his cue card.
Wow, that's
like
sad.
It's like, dude, like have some respect for your craft.
Is it because he was speaking French the whole time or something? I don't know. And then there's a scene where he basically attacks her and then sticks like butter up her and then rapes her. And in reading some of the articles, the actress Maria Schneider, she didn't know that he was going to do that. Even though it wasn't really sex, she still didn't know that he was going to do that, and it felt like she was raped.
Yeah, she felt violated.
She felt violated, and it was never addressed or anything. Everybody kind of blew it off.
It's just it's a weird film in my opinion. It's just
agreed.
I mean, it's not a love story. I mean, it's a story about sex and relationships, yes, but it's not a love story. That he's not in love with her, she's not in love with him. If you're going to make this kind of relationship into a love story, they'd have to get into this relationship that they expect to be purely physical and find something that they, unexpected out of it, where that draws them together and they find that actually they do have feelings, and that doesn't occur here. Yeah,
no. And also, like, I know Paris is not the cleanest city in the world, but it felt really dirty. Like everywhere they were, that apartment was dirty.
I think that's part of.
It was just.
I think it's part of the aesthetic is to kind of. I think what they were trying to go for is Paris is the city of love, but we're going to subvert that to some extent, and we're going to show you a darker, grittier side of this city.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think that's what that they were going for. Because if you think about like every single scene, it's kind of like that. The apartment is kind of it's really run down. Like this is the place that you really want to live.
Yeah.
It's not a great
It's
place.
not like a posh hotel. It's like
Yeah.
where prostitutes go and like
Yeah,
people who are on drugs live.
Like the stucco is like cracked.
Yeah.
And it needs a paint job. It needs just to be fixed up. The train stations, you kind of get that. You get that gritty look there. The streets that they're in.
Yep.
They're not on any of like the really like kind of main streets that you tend to see in movies, about Paris,
Right.
Like all the really nice rues that are, flower lined and have all the ornate, buildings and stuff like that. This is like on the outskirts, it looks like to me.
The nicest place that was there was her mother's place.
Yes.
Her mother's flat was the nicest location.
Yeah.
But you were there once or twice, and it wasn't for very long.
Yeah.
So.
So I gave this one a 49. Jerry gave it a 38, so the list score is 43.5. This is another case where what I've kind of been seeing is like the AFI got real lazy.
Yeah.
And they used movies that they from other lists, and they just kind of have like this
Moshed it in.
They just kind of mashed them in.
Yeah.
Into it. It's like, you got to dig deeper than that. It's one. Yeah, I can. Okay, you've got your 100 greatest movies list. There's a real high chance that some of the stuff that's on this list, even if it's really high on this list, won't make that list. But this is a completely different list. This is a list about a subject. It's not a general thing. So you can't just slot in movies like The Last Tango in Paris that don't fit.
Well,
on
like
this list.
even like if you think about the movies that we have watched, I mean, a lot of them shouldn't be on this list, but then there's some that are like should be way higher than this movie, like Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
This is better than Dirty Dancing?
In terms of a love story, absolutely not.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
yeah, I guess that's all we got to say about this movie.
Yeah.
I'd really rather not give it any more time.
Yeah.
So if you have comments, if you've seen this movie, you disagree or agree with us, please leave a comment. If you would like to talk to us directly, please email us at ratingthelist@gmail.com. But for now, I'm Jerry.
And I'm Brad.
And we'll see you next time. We're Rating the List.
Bye.
Bye.